Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Now I want to make this video just because basically, over the years I have bought a lot of World of Warcraft games, like a lot of them, and 9 times out of 10 I would probably say I basically purchase the Heroic or Epic Edition. But I found myself straying away from this very recently. So firstly, just before I talk about the main topic of this video, which is the Epic Edition and Heroic Edition worth it, I just want to touch on the fact that I come from the era whereby you used to have the normal physical game and then a collector's edition for the physical game. Those were your two options. Digital came in, I think, in a big way with Warlords of Draenor, and that's when you start getting like different variations of digital collector's editions. I have my last physical collector's edition for Warlords of Draenor. It's also when statues kind of started becoming on and off. And so I just want to say that as someone who actually really likes the concept of a physical collector's edition, I'm only debating here the digital variations of the game offerings. I also understand that a lot of people don't have access to physical availability of collector's editions, which is why I'm not talking about them. I want to focus mainly on the store-based products that we have in the online store. Now, firstly, let's talk about the base Heroic and the Epic Edition. So, essentially the price point. Now, $49.99 for an expansion, I think is a good price. Nowadays, games are going for $70, $80, $60, pounds, whichever one you want to use. And for me, I'm going to be honest, I think $49.99 is a decent price for an expansion. Although MMO expansions aren't necessarily the most innovative product, I do think the price point for the amount of content you get and the enjoyment you get, especially if you're playing with friends, is really worth it. Now, in the base edition, nowadays with World of Warcraft, you get every expansion up to the current expansion. So technically, to join in World of Warcraft, all you have to do is buy the latest expansion. Before, you used to have to buy all of the subsequent expansions or the battle chest. They've changed how this model works, so now if you buy War Within, you get Dragonflight. You also get a boost with every single package. Boosts are debatable. I personally think a boost is not a terrible thing. Even for brand new players, I think it is better that they're able to jump into the latest content than it is to redo an entire character. I look at Final Fantasy, for example. Starting that as a fresh player can be quite difficult. Trader's Tender is a whatever, realistically. So let's talk firstly about the Heroic Edition. So the Heroic Edition is €20 more. With the Heroic Edition, you get access to special race courses. With me, this is an immediate red flag beyond compare. I don't know technically what they mean by special race courses. I don't know if they've clarified somewhere. I can't really see any mention here. It says here basically access to special race courses. It doesn't really quantify anymore. For me, it's definitely something that's a bit alarming. Having content locked behind a price point, no matter what kind of content it is, isn't really something I'm super much a fan of. Now, obviously, we also have the actual mount itself, which I think is a decent mount. Is the mount and the transmog set worth $20? I don't think so, personally speaking. It's not that I have an issue with it, it's just not something I feel is worth $20. I think at the most, maybe €10, and I think they should remove the race courses. Just think it's not necessary. Then we look at the Heroic Edition. Now the Heroic Edition tacks on another €20. And this one gives you beta access to War Within, which is currently running, 3 days early access to the War Within, which is my biggest gripe, 30 days of game time, which I think is fine, actually. Squally the Stormling Hatchling, Sandbox Storm Griffin toy, and the Deep Weller's Hearthstone effect. All of these are cute, fun things, nothing too game breaking. So let's talk about the $20 price point between the Heroic and the Epic edition. So obviously it's another $20, euros, etc. Now the big thing here is the 30 days of game time. 30 days of game time, depending on how you subscribe, is at the most £12.99, or around the same in dollars. So technically speaking, if you wanted to evaluate this, you're paying $8 for the product that is not the game time. I know in theory most of us would subscribe anyway, but it being included means that it saves you 1 month of subscription. So you kind of have to bear that in mind. So the actual price of the edition is about $8 more than the Heroic edition. With this, you get 3 days early access. I'm leaving that for last. So you're getting a pet, a Griffin toy, and a Hearthstone effect for about $8. If we look at the store right now, in terms of product, pets, generally speaking, go for around $10 each. So getting a pet, getting a toy, getting a Hearthstone effect, based on the current model of the store, is around about fair. But for me, not too convinced. The reason I'm not convinced is mainly because of the gap between base and Heroic. I think the Epic edition being $10 more than a Heroic edition wouldn't necessarily be a problem for me. You're getting 30 days of game time, you're getting cute pet, you're getting a toy, getting a Hearthstone effect. I know they say they're tacking on game time. For me, they could heavily discount that. You are already investing a lot into the game. So I think, in theory, the price gap between these two packages isn't bad. But I think the overall gap between this one and this one is, generally speaking, not good. And I think the gap between base and Epic is not worth it. Another $40 for all of this isn't actually amounting to much. In theory, you could say that it's actually only a $29 increase or $28 increase, because of course you have game time that you have to buy here. But in theory, I don't think it's worth this. You have to ask yourself whether a mount, a transmog set, a pet, a toy, and a Hearthstone effect are worth $30. Because this and this, they go away. And especially this is very futile if you are anyone who looks to play with friends. A great example is me. This has no value for me, because if I buy this, none of my friends are buying this. So I can't play 3 days early access with any of my friends. Anyone in my guild, doesn't matter. They've all bought this one. So it'll be 3 days of me playing on my own, getting to a higher level, and then waiting around or gearing up while they catch up. Which is fine if that's your vibe, if you like to play solo, if you like to get a head start, maybe you're in a competitive guild, I know that matters. But to sell this as a value-added product nowadays, I think isn't cool. Because for me, it destroys the concept of a World of Warcraft community. Like imagine in TBC, the big thing was the gates opening. And the gates to, the portals to the Burning Crusade opened, and people could enter them for the first time. Imagine that moment is gone, replaced with 70% of the player base getting there in early access, the other 10% waiting by the portals. Wouldn't really hit the same. Listen, I think MMOs, especially the base edition, is probably priced around about fairly. I think you could possibly get away with $40 as well. I don't know what their pricing matrix is. But I think the gaps between the editions is just not worth what they're offering. I think they have a lot of fluff product, beta access, early access, pet, toy, And the fact that they're locking content isn't huge. I know it's not huge content. I know they might add it in later even, but it's just not cool for me, personally speaking. That's it from me. Let me know